Ready?
Justin, middle of the field, 45-50. Green grass in front of him, leaving Lions in his wake. I am Jeff Joniak. Blitz is on. Down he goes! Oscar!
What was it like playing for Coach Ditka?
I don't want to answer any questions like that.
61 yards! A Sunday stroll for Justin Fields.
Oh, wow!
And
Now, Bears Etc., brought to you by Miller Lite with the voices of the Bears, Jeff Joniak and Tom Thayer.
Cuts have been made, deals have been done, and probably more to come before it's all said and done. The 2023 Bears prepare for their 104th season in franchise history with a new look and a new hope for success. Hi, everybody. This is Bears Etc. with Super Bowl winning Bear Tom Thayer. I'm Jeff Joniak, my broadcast partner on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network, and we're brought to you by Miller Lite. Tastes like Miller Time Chicago. All the angst that players have felt over the course of the last few weeks, Tom, and no way is there a sigh of relief, right?
Right, Jeff. You know, have you ever watched the end of the Stanley Cup or a golf tournament where they show the guy that's inscribing the name of the winners on the trophy forever?
Yeah.
That's not happening yet. Those names are not being inscribed on the roster for the finality of the Chicago Bears season. There's hundreds of names and positions and players in previous scouting that they've done on players that have to see if they fit, and they may be better on this team than they were on the team they were trying out for because of depth, because of different instances throughout the course of time in training camp. So I think this is something that we need to, as you say, pump the brakes and let's see where the roster is in almost 2 weeks, where instead of tomorrow.
Right. As of right now, 26 players on offense, 23 on defense, and 3 of the specialists, of course. And the newest addition is Dan Feeney, a local product from Sandburg High School out there in Orland Park, Tommy. Another local guy and a guy with experience, acquired from the Miami Dolphins in return for a 6th-round pick in 2024. More on his arrival from head coach Matt Eberflus, pending the passing of a physical.
In there, you got an inside guy that you feel that can play all spots and back up and be a good starter there. So that's really it, and it's kind of like having a good swing tackle, and that's really what the thought process was there.
When you said that everybody's healthy, but Tevin's week to week, should we interpret that as you expect them to be good to go?
That's what they're saying. Yep, everything looks good. We're getting guys in. We had nice long walkthrough meetings yesterday. We got the same thing today, and guys are looking good there, and they're ramping up. Guys that have been out are starting to do a lot of land-based stuff and getting into speeds and cuts and moving around. So we'll see where it goes, but it looks good right now.
Matt, if Cody's healthy, will he go back to center, or do you anticipate him staying at left guard?
Yeah, we're going to have to look at that once we get the roster finalized, because there's a lot of moving parts right now that we're looking at, every position, for depth and, potential otherwise. But, right now we can't really say that. We'll see.
Tommy, 4 years with the Chargers, 2 seasons with the Jets before joining the Dolphins earlier this offseason. He's got almost 100 career games and 64 starts under his belt. The thing is, the key here is, I would imagine from your perspective, he's insurance and he's got experience at both guard and center.
Exactly. It's all about versatility, Jeff. When you're bringing in a guy, especially an offensive lineman this late in the mix, he's going to have to be fed a lot of information over the next 15 or 14 or however many days there is before the first game. But he's going to have to digest a lot of information before they put him on the practice field so he can get involved in the play. So it's something that he's going to have to stand right to the right of Chris Morgan, the offensive line coach. Every single play that's called, he's almost told his assignment. And then when he gets an opportunity to get some reps, you have to be told your assignment again. But these professionals know how to study. I've had it happen to me when I got cut by the Bears. I got picked up a couple days later by Miami Dolphins, and they said, listen, you better sit there and study your plays so we can activate you as soon as possible. And it's no different now in the NFL.
Yeah, maybe a bit easier transition. Maybe Mike McDaniel from that tree of Kyle Shanahan and guys up in Green Bay, and, of course, Luke Getsy. So there could be a little bit of an easier transition possibly. But, does this also signal anything to you about the health of the offensive line? In particular, what's going on with Cody Whitehair, what's going on with Lucas Patrick, what's going on with Nate Davis, and what potentially is going on with Kramer as well.
And Tevin Jenkins, because when you listen to Matt Eberflus, he wasn't committing to the length of his injury or to any of those guys, and some of them are still day-to-day. So I think it's important to come in here and pick up a guy that has NFL playing experience, because it's not a shock to a guy that's already been in the NFL. Sometimes it is a surprise that's a college player that comes in and plays in the first regular season game, because you, Jeff, listen, man, you've been around the NFL long enough, and you know the tempo of the regular season is a lot different than the uncertainty or the amount of reps that these guys are told they're going to play in the preseason. So I think the one key word as we get ready to start the season is chemistry. And if you think of chemistry, it fits in every single one of the segmented positions that they need to get better before they go against the Green Bay Packers.
A lot of questions about Nate Davis. That was asked of head coach Matt Eberflus on Tuesday. Is he going to be ready to play for week 1?
We're just looking at the phases where he is now. So he's in the steps that says he's going to be ready. I don't know what's going to happen with the other steps, because I can't tell the future. But right now he's in line for where he needs to be, and we'll see where it goes from here.
With a player like that who hasn't been on the field, though, all that much, can you tell the buy-in to the hits principle, to the intensity, to the level of which you expect your guys to be playing, since you haven't really seen that from him in your system?
Yeah. I mean, I played against him for 4 years or whatever it was, from 18 to 20, 21. So I know what kind of player he is. I've seen what kind of player he is, the intensity he brings to the line. And when he's been there, he's looked great. He's been in there looking good on his pass sets, his jumps to the second level in the run game. So he's looked really good in there. And like I said, the process will take care of itself, and he'll be ready to go. But my past experiences with him, he's our kind of guy.
Tom, it made it seem like everybody's going to be ready to go come week 1, with the exception of Tevin Jenkins.
Well, Nate Davis, he's got to be ready to play. If he was able to put his pads on a couple times in Indianapolis and throughout the last week of the preseason, this is not a ramp up period anymore for Nate Davis. This is a prepared to start for Nate Davis. And the biggest help that they can give Darnell Wright is having an experience lined up to his immediate left and his immediate right when you talk about the tight end position. Nate, you were paid a lot of money to come in here and to be a day one bona fide starter. That's what I expect out of him, and I hope that's the same expectations for Bear Nation and the Bears coaching staff.
Score huge savings on an impressive lineup of items at Jewel Osco for you. This handy app features hot digital deals on everything from premium produce and savory snacks to butcher fresh meat and more. Get additional details at jewelosco.com. All right, among the cuts, the veterans, defensive end Trevis Gibson and cornerback Kendall Vildor. They've been in the program now for several years. DeMarcus Gates was banged up, didn't play much at all during the preseason. Stephen Carlson, the tight end, Avante Collins, a tackle, and also some other veterans like Doris Fountain at the wide receiver position, Michael Ojemudia at corner, and Simba Webster. Some of these guys, even though they're veterans, will be brought back to the 16-man practice squad, so this is probably something that we probably shouldn't even get into, but let's tackle Gibson number one, because obviously the idea that he was asking for and granted a trade request did not materialize, but it seemed like the handwriting was on the wall for Trevis.
Yeah, there's coaches out there that have familiarity with him. If you look at Sean Desai in Philly, you look down in Miami with Vic Fangio, there's guys that are familiar with his style of play and his dedication to the everyday responsibilities of an NFL player. So you never know. He could land on one of those two teams. I think if I was Trevis Gibson, I would stay fresh. I would stay working out. I would stay ready to play at a moment's notice, because he showed, in the preseason that he's got pass rushing skills. So maybe it's something, if you can continue to refine those skills, you end up in a roster and have a long, healthy, happy career.
All right, got to talk about Tyson Bagent. He is the number 2 quarterback right now. Nathan Peterman was waived. It does not preclude, according to head coach Matt Eberflus, from bringing in some experience at the quarterback position, but his performance throughout training camp and in the preseason certainly turned everybody's heads. Here's Eberflus on what he's looking for in the young man.
When you're a young player like that, you have to improve and get better every single week. And he's going to learn as he goes through the process of how the game plan changes every week. And that's probably a lot different than what he's used to. You put a training camp install in and you're going through these concepts that you have, the runs and then the play action comes off of it and the screen game we're putting in and, the quick game, the empty game and so forth. And you kind of go through that process during week 1, week 2, week 3 of training camp. And all of a sudden now you get to a game week and you're like, say, hey, we're going to pull this off the board, we're going to change this, adjust this. And you got to learn all those concepts, but they may look different to the defense. And that's how we put them in. So he's going to have to learn how to do that process.
Tom, anything about this surprise you?
Well, let me ask you something. You announced the Senior Bowl. Does anything surprise you? You have more eyes-on experience from his practicing when you go from the college he went to, Shepherd University, right?
Yep.
Now you go to the Senior Bowl with all these Division I 5-star quality athletes. Me, I'm surprised just because I didn't know anything about him. But I've grown to like these guys that stay in college for 4 years because it's evident of the extra couple thousands of reps that they get in those last years that it helps them, elevate their skills. What about you, Joniak? Are you surprised?
No, I'm not, because I've said all along, it's just there's something about the guy, the way he carries himself, the way he walked on the practice field, the way players responded to him, the way he throws the football, his mechanics. So no, and his belief. I mean, this word moxie keeps coming up. I think it's just in the household he lived in with that father who was internationally famous for being a arm wrestler and being a champion of the best ever. He just walks and walks the talk. He's just, there's something about him. And whenever you hear about the something about him guys, they're going to get a chance. And now he has a chance. And he believed this long before he started high school out there in West Virginia. Long before he was ignored by colleges, he felt his whole mindset, Tom, was getting to the NFL. And when he started that process, there's video on it, and he's quoted as saying, people are they're gonna be wondering why they pass me up when I play in the NFL. And so now he's on the doorstep of being in the NFL.
Jeff, when I was a junior in high school, me and 2 classmates of mine sitting in class, we said, hey, how are we going to sign our autograph when we make it to professional sports? It was in April of my junior year. I had that same mindset in my head, and I'm glad that Bajan had it because you see what it's come out to be. Now, the first thing, you hear that term, the eye test. Does he pass the eye test? Is he Doug Flutie, 5'9 plus? No. He's 6'3", 215 pounds. He passes the eye test. But now it's all about the mental test, and he's passed it. He's shown the coaches, given the indication in meetings and on the practice field and on the game field that nothing's too big for him. So I'm proud of the kid. I'm happy for him, and I hope he has a long, successful career.
Yeah, I love these stories, and they're all over the National Football League. There's a bunch of guys making teams that nobody thought they would make, and let's see what happens with their careers. One of those guys is tight end Robert Tonyan. He talked about Bajan and how he interacted with him, their conversations, and his own Indiana State to Detroit Lions to Green Bay Packers journey. Let's listen in.
Yeah, he's a good kid. He's a gamer. What's good about him, he was from a D2 school, and he played a lot of football. It's not like a guy who was just, starting like a handful of games in Division I and then getting drafted. He played, a lot of games, had a lot of success, so he has a lot of football under his belt.
He's been very self-aware just about the level that he came from, and he said that he'd make plays and he'd notice some guys be like, wait, like you kind of almost like a little bit of shock that a D2 guy can make a play like that. And like, you went where to school? Like, how have you seen your teammates react to like how well he's played this preseason, knowing where he came from?
I think that's what's good about like our team, a young team. Like everyone's just so like the camaraderie is good. Everyone doesn't really look down on people where they came from, or if you can play football, you can play football, and those are the people that we want around this building, and we want a part of this team. So, it is a little different, a D2 quarterback, just coming in and just all of a sudden making plays. But if you look at his film and like who he is, and his statistics and all that, I mean, he's been doing it. So.
Along the same lines, you were a guy who had to fight for a roster spot. What do you remember about the emotions of like roster cutdown day, and what advice do you have for guys?
Yeah, I mean, I had, when I was in Detroit, I had the worst where, I went in to sign my practice squad contract, and then they didn't have it all of a sudden. And then the next year I go in and they call me, I get that, the prank call that I got cut, and then I go in there and then I made the team. So it was like completely opposites. But yeah, I mean, just advice. I mean, it does, weigh on you when you get that call or when you get cut. But there's so much that can happen within these like next handful of weeks. So many injuries in the first couple games, or you see roster moves that people didn't really like, or you kind of just see how the NFL unfolds in terms of rosters and moves and stuff like that. So you kind of really can't dwell on it. But yeah, I mean, I didn't sign Green Bay until like the first week of December. So I was at home for like a whole year. So, and yeah, so I mean, really cliche as it sounds, it really isn't how it starts. But when you get your opportunity, finishing and executing and just making do with your opportunities.
Someone had the audacity to prank call you from the front office to like.
No. It was like another player who got cut. And then he used like the same text and copied and pasted and sent it to me. I literally went into the office and handed in my iPad, and then everyone was like excited to see me, and I was super confused.
What did you say to someone?
No, I didn't say anything. Yeah, there's like an article on it on ESPN or something like that. But this was 2008. Yeah, 2018. I had a really good preseason, and they basically told me like I was on the team, so I was like cool. And then like I'm at home like playing video games with my buddy, and all of a sudden like I get that text and I literally drove like so mad to the building, like handed in my iPad. Then my tight ends coach and the GM are like super excited to see me. I was like, this is weird.
All right, that was a great story from Tanya. The one I cannot believe, though, was getting the crank call from somebody he didn't really like on the team, telling him that he was cut after he thought he'd made the Packers. How mean.
It was a text. So
Yeah.
so some other teammate got cut through a text, and then that teammate took that text and sent it to Tunyon. I would have drove right to that person's house and beat the crap out of him, and then went back and hoped like heck that I still had a playbook at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, it's one of the greatest stories I've ever heard from an actual NFL successful player by Robert Tunyon. And someday I would like to talk to him behind closed doors and get more of a off the microphone, response to it.
Well, even Detroit, he shows up for the practice squad, and there was no contract. Just that's all he said. There was none. That was it. It was not happening. So, and he didn't even play football for almost a year before he got together with the Packers, and then had a 10-touchdown season up there in Green Bay. So we're great guy, local guy. Glad he's here, and that's an exciting watch. Game day snacking calls for Good Foods chunky guacamole made with Hass avocados, tomatoes, onions, cilantro, and a squeeze of lime juice. It's the perfect snack to watch while the Bears win. Score some today at your local grocery store. Game day is guac day. I'm going to tell you, and you've been making a lot of comments about me and my apparent love for number 29, Thayer Stevenson, but I've also really, my eyes are telling me, okay, Zach Pickens can play football. He can play football for me. And I just love the idea of Pickens and Dexter. They get out there together. They walk around together. It's like your offensive linemen when they're all together. These two guys, they are joined at the hip, and maybe they have great 10-year careers here with the Chicago Bears at defensive line, defensive tackle, nose tackle in this system. What are your thoughts on Pickens and Dexter?
They don't have a lot of similarities in their style of play. When you look at Zach Pickens, you look at the immediate explosiveness that he gets in control of the offensive lineman, and he puts him in a defensive position that offensive linemen don't want to be in. Javon Dexter has athleticism to move laterally and to move vertically, like he says. So I like the way that these guys are increasing their repertoire, their arsenal. And Travis Smith, the defensive line coach, I think he's the perfect guy for them because he's got a variety of skills that he's been taught from other coaches. And then he does a really nice job of teaching these guys on the move. So they put them in place. It's not something they think about. It's just the way they react as defensive linemen. So I'm looking for the increased potential and growth of both of these guys in their own different skill sets.
Here's Pickens on the potential he sees with Dexter, his running mate.
Oh, yes, sir. We definitely do that. Celebrate. We dap each other up every time we're about to go on the field. We give each other confidence, and that's one thing I always wanted. And if you believe it, he believe it, we're going to be all right. And I feel like if we play our cards right, can't nobody stop us.
And that being said, Dexter, let's listen in. He feels that he's starting to prove people wrong. And when asked, well, what do you mean? He goes, I was a second-round pick. He says it so calmly. Let's listen in.
Yeah, completely opposite player now. Like getting off the ball, playing vertical, and learning how to do some of those things. Even my rush ability has turned a whole different level. So
like lean on athletic ability more in college. It just seems like that's a natural thing, and then you come up here and you realize it takes more than that. Have you come to that kind of realization?
right, yeah, of course. I think like a guy like me, where I can win some one-on-ones just with my God given. But now there's guys who's just as big and just as strong. So it's technique versus technique, pad level, hands, inside hands. It's a lot of little things that you gotta have to win here.
That's the kind of agitation you had, right? He's agitated.
I'm
He wasn't
bitter.
a first. Yeah, but he's mad. He's not a first-round pick, so therefore he feels people don't believe in him.
Yeah, but drink that 4th-round Kool-Aid like I've been drinking. I'm still bitter about it. So
It still doesn't taste any good. It's
listen,
not. It doesn't taste. There's no taste. Hasn't changed. Come on.
I admire these two defensive linemen because they're not satisfied. They're not happy. They know they have a lot of potential, but they need to work hard to, have that growth cultivate. And so, like I said, I'm excited to see them down the road, and I think they're on a good team. There's some good veterans here. And when you look at the front seven of any defense, you need that rotational defensive line that can keep your reps as fresh as they can possibly be. And I hope they're contributors on week 1, day 1.
All right, so you got 9 of them as of right now. DeMarcus Walker, Joniak Ngakoue, Dominique Robinson, Rasheem Green, and Terrell Lewis. He makes the team. Justin Jones, Andrew Billings, then Zach Pickens and Javon Dexter Sr. Do you like the rotation, the flexibility of these 9 gentlemen?
I need to see DeMarcus Walker where he's at. He hasn't shown me enough on the practice field other than being a little chirpy, being a little instigator. I like that side of him. I think the team needs that. But I need to see DeMarcus Walker healthy and have multiple reps on the field in full pads to show me what he's going to contribute to the outside position.
We are brought to you by Molson Coors, Vizzy Hard Seltzer, the official hard seltzer of the Chicago Bears, and United Airlines, official airlines of the Chicago Bears. And we're brought to you by PNC, the official bank of the Bears. Tremaine Edmonds had that 20-day absence from training camp, did get in a few snaps in the preseason finale, so we haven't seen him in his entirety with this defense as well, with his running mate T.J. Edwards, Eddie Jackson, of course, and Jaquan Brisker at safety. So Kyler Gordon was asked if he's concerned about that lack of continuity as they head into the opener.
Since the beginning of camps and OTAs, we've been in moments where we all gelled together, and I've seen the way that we've all played and how dominant it can be, kind of like what I was talking about a little bit earlier. And so, being able to have that and that chemistry and stuff, and even to be able to go through walkthroughs and do stuff, and the communication be so smooth that when, we're going through plays, it's it's just smooth. And especially compared to last year, at least for me, and, being able to talk to the players and, we can do this, we can do that. Okay, let's just make sure we talk it up. And I don't really have any doubts as far as the way we're going to gel. I've seen each player do something special individually and add and contribute to this defense and stuff like that. So I think a lot of people are curious about it. But as a defense and people that have been here in the building, I have a lot of doubt in the players that we have and stuff like that. So I feel good about us. All
right, Gordon says he's not worried about it because he's seen it throughout the course of the offseason and practice that when they were healthy, these guys were playing a certain style of defense. And they did. They looked good. They looked better at times than the offense did throughout certain practices in the offseason and training camp. What is your take and concern at all for the starting defense as it prepares for the Packers?
Well, this is my concern. When Kyler Gordon was at the mic, communication inside the classroom is a lot different than chemistry on the field when you have moving parts against your opponent. When the whole defense was out there, I think, Jeff, that was the most impressive element of training camp for us in the first 4 or 5 days of camp when they were all out there. They were fast on their feet. They're athletic. They moved well. They were taking the ball away. They were putting pressure on the quarterback. I like that Kyler Gordon feels that they're in a better place now than they were a year ago, obviously, when some of these kids were rookies. But if they have all these guys stay healthy, They have depth in the defensive backfield. They're more athletic at the linebacker position with depth. They got a better rotation of defensive linemen. If they can stay on the field together, what did Kyler say at the end of it? That they could be scary. This is a good group. So I'm excited to see that.
Now we need the offense to feel the same way about itself, with Justin Fields pulling the trigger for DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, Equiminius St. Brown, Tyler Scott, Bayless Jones Jr., Cole Kmet, Robert Tonyan, Mercedes Lewis, and the running backs. You kept 5 running backs, including Kari Blasingame. So you've got a lot of weaponry and a lot of mismatches you could create if everything falls into place. But, of course, the offensive line's got to come out healthy. So these are all things. A lot of questions yet with 2 weeks to go before the start of the season opener, Tommy.
Chemistry, Jeff. And I'm going to repeat that word until I get 100 reps of the offensive line together of the same 5 guys. And I think that's when you can start scratching the surface of the chemistry that you ultimately need. So, Jeff, you take, for example, the first 3 games of the year, and you think of the defense Green Bay runs, you think of the defense Tampa Bay runs, and you think of the defense that Kansas City runs. There's subtle differences to every one of those defenses, and you don't have time to talk on the line of scrimmage about the communication of responsibilities. You got to get to know each other so well that it's a blink of an eye. It's an elbow tap in the huddle. It's a head nod. It's a code word at the offensive line that everybody knows exactly what you're talking about. So, my opinion is still out there, and I'll give you that opinion after hopefully I see those 100 snaps.
All 3 of those defensive lines have impressive players on it, assuming, of course, that Chris Jones returns and avoids a holdout there for Kansas City.
I hope not.
All right, Big Tom, did anything on the final roster, as we know it right now, surprise you? And, take the injuries aside, there were a few guys banged up. Of course, that practice squad will feature players that are from other rosters, but a number of rookies that did not make the final roster will be on that practice squad.
Surprise, no. I'm just waiting to see the guys get into their place to see how they developed on this team. Because, you talked about the absence of Tremaine Edmonds. We talk about the absence of Chase Claypool. So there's veterans on this football team that haven't been around for a little while, DeMarcus Walker, that they're going to play a significant role on this football team, Jeff. So when you talk about these next days leading up to the Green Bay game, it's almost like they have to speed up their process of contributing to this football team mentally, physically, and in the meeting rooms and every way that the Bears are going to be asking of them. So I'm excited to see. It's not the finished product before the Green Bay game. It's the product before the Green Bay game.
Yeah, just taking a glance at the Packers roster, obviously the biggest change is the most important one to Jordan Love, but a lot of the same names that we have dealt with over the years are on that roster. It's a young receiving core. It's a veteran defensive line with veteran defensive players in the secondary and a veteran offensive line with a pair of running backs that can cause you some damage.
Why'd they cut your guy?
Who is that?
Patrick O'Donnell.
I know. They cut him Monday. Yeah,
I'm surprised about that. Patrick O'Donnell he'll end up on an NFL roster as an active player, maybe week 2. But, there was a lot of kickers around the league traded in moving around teams at this part of the season. So, listen, in Green Bay, I don't like Green Bay. That's no secret. But I like Patrick O'Donnell, and I was surprised when I saw his name.
All right. Lastly, one bit of nugget that is important for the season to come. Tommy, 8 of the Bears' 13 losses came down to a single score, and they had led in the fourth quarter in some of those games. That's how much excitement there was in the season that became a 14-loss season. Despite that fact, so how do they bridge that gap now? How do they win those close ones?
They have to have more sustainability, time sustainability that leads to score on offense. They have to keep their defense fresh late in the game, because when you look at the analytics and the statistics of the defense, it's got to go hand in hand, Jeff. It's got to be a contributing, scoring, time-consuming offense that allows the defense to play fresh, because we just talked about all the assets the defense has. And if they're allowed to go out there in the fourth quarter and play a fresh brand of football, then you're going to see them winning those types of games. And, so we need probably more explosive plays in the fourth quarter as well.
All right, that's going to wrap us up. Thank you, Miller Lite, the official beer of the Chicago Bears. Tastes like Miller Time, Chicago. Tommy, we'll talk to you in a couple of days.
Attaboy, Jeff.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Please subscribe now on the Chicago Bears official app, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll talk to you in a couple of days. This is Bears Etc. with Tom Thayer. I'm Jeff Joniak. Thanks for listening.